Hi, I'm David. I'm the really fun photography guy. As I've said in earlier videos, I am a professional and was darn near burned out doing professional photography. I'd forgotten all about why I started in the first place, and that was to have fun. So we've been looking at some things just to have fun: manual focus, cheap lenses, old technology cameras, and we discussed several different things like aperture. We haven't really gone into ISO, which we're going to do because I've seen so much bad information on that perusing YouTube channels over the last few years. And then we'll also talk about shutter speed. But right now we're going to talk about aperture because we really got into that a little bit last week when we were, or last video a few days ago, when we took a photo of an old car on some property near my house. And on one of the photos we had the aperture wide open, which is, you know, gathering as much light as we possibly can. And in doing so, we got a real sharp rendition of the car at the point of focus. You know, I was manual focusing in on just a headlight, and the rest of the car, as we went past or behind the headlight, it got softer, not as much detail. And finally in the background, the forest was really soft, just blurred. So it brought all the attention to what I was focusing on when I took that photo. Then on the next photo, I stopped the aperture down a little bit. I made it smaller, and when I did that, it brought it brought a lot more detail into focus. The rest of the car, the forest became a little more defined. And so why did that happen? Well, this is physics, so I'm not going to do a physics lesson, but as you narrow the light source down onto the sensor or the film, you gain more detail in the photo. So like in landscape, a lot of times you'll shut it down as little as you can, and that enables you to get everything in focus in the foreground and way out there in the distance, almost to infinity. But there's more to it than just that. I mean, it's fun to go out there and do that and say, well, you know, I want to highlight this and highlight that. I want detail here. I want softness here. And we should always go out and experiment with that on a particular lens or whatever. But there's another element involved in with the aperture and how it affects the detail of the photo and basically the story that that particular photo tells, and that's called compression. And different focal lengths will give you a different perspective, and that's called compression. So today I went out and shot a picture or a photograph of a black car. The first photograph is of the car with a very wide angled lens, comparatively speaking. It's a Zeiss lens. It's full frame. It would be a 12 millimeter, and on my crop sensor Fuji, you multiply that times 1.5 because it's cropped down and makes it bigger. It turns into a 18 millimeter lens. And then the other lens that I took a photo of the black car with is our old trusty TT Artisans manual focus lens, which is a 50 millimeter full frame. But on this crop sensor camera, the Fuji, it translates into a 75 millimeter. So I framed up a photo of the car with the wide angle, the 18 millimeter, and I got a photo of that. Had it stopped down to 5.6 because I wanted to get a lot of detail. We're not trying to work with soft background or anything like that with this experiment. Then I took another photo, and I wanted the car to appear to be the same size as it was in the 18 millimeter focal length. I wanted it to be the same size using the 75 millimeter. Now, in order to do that, I had to walk way back from where I shot the car with the 18, way back there. But I finally got there and took the photo, again at 5.6, and so, in fact, I couldn't get back far enough. I ran into a fence. So I had to crop the 18 just a tiny bit so we could compare the two a little more equally. And what we find out is that even though we've got the car the same size, we've got the aperture set at 5.6, we get a whole different rendition of that background. So if you look at the first one, at the wide angle lens, the 18 millimeter, you can see a whole lot of stuff in the background. Tells a big story. It lets you know that the car has woods around it. There's a house beside it and another house down the street. Gives you a lot of information, and it's all pretty clear. But then, when I take the longer focal length and have to walk way back to do it, we experience what's called compression. If you look at that photo, all of a sudden that house is much closer. The woods are much closer. There's not as much information photo-wise about what's going on around the car as there is in the wide angle lens, the 18 millimeter. So, what difference does that make? Well, it gives you some really fun options as far as how you're going to shoot a photo. Do you want to use a wide angle, or do you want to use a long focal point and change what the background looks like, compressing it? If I'm going to take a portrait of somebody, I love to use a 90 or 110 millimeter focal length lens, and I get up there and it compresses that background, and if I have it set at a really wide aperture, I can get a beautiful background that's so soft, just the way I want it, and it highlights with great detail the subject, the portrait that I'm taking. So I can do it also with a wide angle, but I don't get, I can move real close in with a wide angle, open. I'll get some blurry background. There's a thing that's called bokeh, the bokeh balls. We'll talk more about that later. That's a big deal right now. Well, it's always been a big deal, to tell you the truth, with some people. So here's what I'd like for you to do after you watch this video. Grab your camera, I don't care what it is, and two different lenses. And then you can use a zoom if you want to. If you got one lens and it's a zoom, zoom at the shortest focal length, and then zoom way out and get it at its longest. And look at what happens with your background. Now you're going to have to move around a little bit, because I want the photo, for this to work and you understand the experiment, you're going to have to move back the longer the focal length in order to get the same size image in each focal length. And look at what happens. And experiment with different apertures, what happens to it when you do that. So that gives you another tool to go out and shoot photos, and it's just fun. Just go out, go downtown. Don't worry what people think about you, or go out in the woods. It's a beautiful day here in North Carolina. This is a great day to go out in the woods and try this experiment on different things. And don't worry what it's going to look like at first. Just take photos. The more you take, the more you can see how these little experiments can add to your stable of tools in photography. And it's fun. It's fun. Don't work towards perfection right now. Work towards your style. What you like, what represents your personality. You know, as a guitar player, when I was really young, I copied all the great guitar players from my time. I tried to learn their licks exactly the way they were. But after a while, I had the technical part of guitar playing down, and I was able to start playing things the way I wanted them to play, the way I wanted them to sound, to have David's style. So go out there and experiment a little bit. We're going to talk about some other parts of the, you know, the triangle, the exposure triangle. And please subscribe to the channel. Please hit like and tell your friends about it. That's the only way I can really grow the channel. And so I would appreciate your support. I'm going to keep these videos coming pretty quickly because I love them, and it's making my photography more fun. And I'm learning a little bit more and more about videography. I mean, when I first started this, I didn't even know what an F-log was, and that was just a few weeks ago. But I'm learning and trying to get better and better with that. So, you know, I invite you to come along on my journey of learning more and more about videography. And as I learn more and I find little shortcuts and tricks and ways to keep it fun, I'll pass that on to you. Anyway, I love y'all. Have a great weekend, and I'll be back with you in a couple of days.